Look in, ladies and gentlemen. Just as we usually start these recent videos by watching a financial expert, today will be no different. Today we're gonna watch me. Today we're gonna watch a video about Palantir. This is why you're here, probably when you want to know where Palantir is headed. But before we get started with analyzing where Palantir is going, let's see how accurately did I analyze. As you can see, this video was uploaded a month ago. Unfortunately, it didn't have too many views. Right below 300 views, so not too many people knew about this. So pay attention again. If you think about it, a month ago the stock market was in free fall and everybody were running around and screaming, thinking that the stock market is going to crash, right? And the only direction that they saw was downward. So we were looking roughly at around that 120, 124-ish kind of range that we were testing back then. So what I want you to do right now is watch with me what I said about, well, more than a month ago. It's actually on the 16th of February. So I want you to watch this. And yeah, it's not going to be that straightforward. I know everybody's panicking, so, well, it depends on you whether you want to panic or not. I'm just going to tell you what it is that I'm seeing from the standpoint, from the technical analysis standpoint, and you do with it as you please, right? At the end of the day, that's kind of how it works. Join my community, you'll know more. I keep my community up to date on the daily basis. So let's quickly switch to the 1 minute chart, which don't forget, we are having some price action going on in the futures today, but these will not actually register into the price action or the pre-post market of Palantir and the various other assets until tomorrow. So basically that is kind of redundant stuff. And in reality, since I'm not going to switch over to the indices, what we are seeing is basically going to sum itself up with the opening up where we closed roughly. So it's kind of meaningless, right? About 99% that's what's going to happen. We're going to talk about that later in the next video. For right now, yes, the channel is pointing downwards, but wait, it's not that straightforward. Nothing is all that simple. Nothing is just all that straightforward, linear in one single direction. There are corrections in the market. First of all, objectively looking right now at the 5 minutes, although of course it may change and slightly adjust as we go into the pre-market tomorrow, or rather overnight for me. So let's try to look at the bigger picture of things instead of hyper focusing on what is the very tight-knit sort of neighborhood of the price action for the following maybe day or two. Let's look at the bigger, broader picture. Maybe there is more hidden in there that we can see right away. For example, as you can see now on the chart, we have two channels. One of them is very narrow, one of them is very wide. And objectively, we can say we've been moving along this channel, and we broke down within this channel. Kind of we penetrated back into the channel that we actually have acknowledged prior, but that's a whole separate story. The bigger story here to be sort of attentive to is to notice, again, I'm probably out of the camera as always, I tend to do, we have this channel, right? We have this wider channel, the broader moving average sort of range, and it does look like we're establishing right now a bit of a sideways price action altogether, although it is very wide. Yes, it's wide because we're zoomed in and we're merely on the 30 minutes. If we just zoom out just a little bit and remember that on the broader spectrum of the head and shoulders that we are seeing in terms of scale, right, in terms of what actually is going on, in terms of harmonic behavior of that very price action, as you can see, we're talking about basically nothing. We're kind of too stuck in that very narrow neighborhood. In fact, that's part of the thing I would like to prevent us from doing. Let's look at the broader picture. Well, Greg, on that broader picture, you're having this line going up. Is that the case? Well, kind of, sort of, actually. Like, look, for example, since we're already at the 4-hour range, try to ignore my beautiful drawing right there. Pay attention to the momentum. The momentum is bullish, about to penetrate the 50 range, which kind of indicates where our bullish and bearish momentum separate. So simply by going into over that 50 range will become even more bullish. So there is a buildup of bullish momentum on the longer range of things. If we're attentive, first of all, we have a potential top here to be retested, a potential resistance, as we can see what was a support here, then became resistance right here. If we want to be objective about that level, it's that 143.71 level, which actually played the role of the support in this instance. So yeah, it's not going to be out of the imagination. Even if we break out of this trend that we're seeing in the background, it's not going to be out of the imagination, not out of the ordinary, to see the price action testing that very level, kind of moving into a negative wedge, if you will, to an inverted funnel, very similar to what we actually seen before. Again, what we've tested here, we're going to test it here. So similarly, we end up testing it here, and very much so like we've seen before, the price action can slip out of these ranges. There's a wider range that is being observed at this process, right? There's a wider range than what you're seeing currently. little hyper focused on. So let's go to the larger time frames, see what larger time frames are saying. In fact, the larger time frame, which is the daily, we in fact are already above that 50 range. So in fact, we are technically already bullish. It is kind of in and out in that sense that we're having this mixed sort of momentum, and it makes sense. It actually makes sense, which I will highlight in my following video about the market. I kind of expected the market to behave that in that shifty way as we went into a long weekend, which I absolutely forgot about. I was completely absolutely certain until the weekend itself that we're actually going to be going back to trading on Monday, and I was absolutely wrong. I completely forgot about President Day. Best we can have, and I mean globally, we, especially the Americans, love you all. Something that is very important, I think, that will play part of the narrative that you got to assess. Sort of, you got to take the whole picture and not the parts you like about the story, right? You take the whole story in, not the parts not only the parts you like. So realistically speaking, Palantir appears to be far ahead of the market. And again, I will refer to that, to how and where the market is. In fact, just to throw a little tidbit right there if I can, the market, as we said, is still at its flattening process, basically at arguably the peak, and there is still more downwards to be had, and in fact, corrections within that framework. Of course, I'm not saying that's how long it's going to take. This is just general guidance to explain what is expected. In fact, of course, yes, we do know the price action tends to break faster than it sort of climbs, right? We depreciate in value faster than we appreciate in value, but no one says that then you will not be able to move sideways for multiple months and retesting these levels again and again and again. So don't just assess this as hit and run kind of thing. That's not how things work. Right. So given how far ahead Palantir is, and arguably it would make just logical sense from the standpoint of the cyclicality and the overall behavior of the asset. More so, it's not like Palantir is a bad company. If anyone here has an idea of that I dislike Palantir or I'm a Palantir hater, I have advocated for Palantir many times. I just go bananas whenever I see people talk shit about Palantir and don't understand that, literally our westernized way of life and security depends on it. Honestly, I'll say it as simple as it freaking gets. Okay, listen carefully. If you're not a terrorist, if you don't have like bad shit in mind, you really shouldn't worry about Palantir. And trust me, Palantir really does not have any clue to which corn you watch with a P, right? They really don't give a flying fuck. Trust me. I mean, you can just watch people like CodeStrap and various other people who actually have the expertise in what Palantir do, and not crazy people. Look, I love Mutahar. Mutahar has an amazing channel on YouTube. I hope I'm not going to have issues with him because I've mentioned his name. Mutahar, salute to you. Great videos, but you're utterly wrong about Palantir. Do your research. You don't understand how Palantir works at all, how it was structured, and I highly recommend you do more proper due diligence, more proper research, so you understand how that actually works. Now, Palantir is a great company. I, in fact, think right now, no one can replicate nor become the second Palantir, simply because Palantir was trained by a whole bunch of data that was given to them. It's not sensitive data as much as people realize, and again, individual people in Palantir absolutely accurate and completely trading Palantir back in the day many times before in that direction. And don't think that you're going to wake up tomorrow and, well, it's 30. No. In fact, I just already made a video. If you haven't watched that, go to my channel and watch my previous video about Palantir. The current sort of momentum and price behavior, and it's the end of the world. I definitely wouldn't do that with my beautiful hair, right? So let's look at the daily momentum. The daily momentum, although as we said, it still is having some confluence, and arguably that is the mixture of bullish and bearish. We have the weekly. The weekly is the one that really tells us, wait, things are not over yet. Because even though we are in bearish territory, once we do have the confluence right here, we will probably end up with a bit of a corrective movement. Again, this is too far, too fast. So people who capitulate right now are doing the wrong thing. If you ask me, my opinion, not financial advice, right? Not a call for action. You do you should be an adult, movement. Again, this is tells us, wait, things are not over yet. Because even though we are in bearish territory, once we do have the confluence right here, we will probably end up with a bit of a corrective movement. Again, this is too far, too fast. So people who capitulate right now are doing the wrong thing. If you ask me, my opinion, not financial advice, right? Not a call for action. You do you should be an adult, manage your own portfolio. I'm just giving you my own point of view and analysis of the market. Remember, we still are in a broader downwards trend, but even here on the monthly, we can see some form of confluence. That confluence can lead to some form of serious correction. Now, does that mean we're going to go all the way back up? I don't think so. oftentimes what we end up doing with regards to our harmonic structures is basically retesting the previous major, stronger resistance, which arguably I would say resides roughly at around 164-ish. It does not mean we can on a good day not have slippage to 171.46. Now, is that conclusive? Is that certain? No. That's why you need to subscribe and put the notifications to everything, all the bell thingy, so otherwise you'll not be up to speed, but now we'll be able to analyze and see that, well, whether the momentum is shifting one way or another. Right now, of course, some of these things are not even certain yet. We may end up dipping even lower before we have a corrective move, but right now it does seem to be that we are residing roughly within between these levels of 130 and 137, as I've highlighted before. Of course, there are multiple support and resistance levels within that vicinity, but 130 and 137 are our major support resistance levels, even if we do slip out up and down as we are revolving within the framework of that support and resistance these various support and resistance levels that come together to give almost this structure-like phenomena. Now, of course, I'm not going to delete all of this, but you guys get the idea if you kind of follow up on what is it I'm trying to say here, that those who are panicking too soon, those are the weakest of the bunch, of course. And they're capitulating. It makes sense. Now, I'm not telling anyone to not hold again. That's none of my business. All I am saying that it makes sense why the weaker of the bunch are capitulating earlier at that stage already. Arguably, they're actually smart, realizing that the price action will fall and the price will fall even lower. As it appears on a sort of bigger picture in the grander scheme of things. And by the way, yes, it all stems and goes eventually down to that larger time frame, which is that quarterly, which I've warned about many times. And how the market behaves overall, right? We need to have the market open the gates and allow the conditions for the individual assets to start breaking, or the investors to capitulate, if you will, right? Or traders as well. Traders are not interested in trading this. Anyway, bottom line is, as you can see, first of all, far ahead of time, far before we got there, whether it is my ability to analyze and predict the fact that Palantir will be having a correction to the upside, right, where everybody were panicking and being tremendously scared. Now let's analyze where we are with Palantir on the grand scheme of things. Let's start with the smaller time frames and see how we got to where the 143 range, as you saw on my chart right now. I placed the potential highs even higher than where we are right now. I placed them roughly at around $150, kinda. It does not necessarily mean we're gonna get there. I even spoke about 160 and 170, but let's analyze now where we're at. Where did we get so far from that video a month ago? As you saw, I also predicted the various behaviors with regards to the S&P ahead of time. In fact, back then we were still at the stages of moving sideways. We were still within that band right here, and already here I was able to predict we're gonna have a significant downwards movement and a corrective movement on it. As you see, we pretty much got exactly what I said. Yes, the movement to the upside is slightly stronger than expected. We're going to discuss that in a separate video. I'm going to do another video on the S&P and the overall market, because on this one we want to focus on Palantir. So let's start with the 5 minutes. As we know, the 1 minute is insignificant. On the 5 minutes here, we are right now, again, I hope you guys notice there's a new overlay for the videos, right? A new sort of way where we do these videos, and you can rely on what is presented right here, right above me, and compare and understand how our stochastic relative strength index or indicator functions, how it does allow us to understand our momentum, whether we're accelerating, decelerating, whether we're bullish, whether we're bearish, basically, and understand what it is that I'm trying to say. This thing above me allows you to interpret what it is that we see right here on the bottom, and that kind of allows you to understand the momentum. So 5 minutes, as you can see, right now, well, on the grand scheme of things in general, the price action is testing the 143.71 level, which is a Fibonacci retracement level. It's a very strong level. On the 30 minutes, we are bullish but in bearish territory. We are, well, again, between that 20 and 50, we are objectively in neutral territory, but more so bearish than bullish. We are pointing to the upside, and so this is still showing movement a bullish movement, if you will, which given the level we're at right now, it completely makes sense that what we're seeing is just a retest, a movement to the upside to retest 143.71. Again, we kind of have confirmation for that from there. Given how we are progressing and looking at the larger time frame and at a longer duration movement, thus potentially a faster, not faster, sort of larger movement, right? So that will get us even further from where we are right now. If that bullish momentum is being retained, as it is right now, as you can see right here on the bottom, if that bullish momentum is retained, it will print through via testing potentially that resistance that we have of the channel that we have on the 45 minutes, potentially similar channel on the 1 hourly. It's probably not gonna differ all that much. Actually does, the significantly larger channel. Irregardless, we do have multiple levels that are in the vicinity. Here we do have a couple of inner levels that are not necessarily on the screen right there, but we have the 147.31 level, which is also very important. And given how the structure is becoming even more bullish right here on the hourly, basically what we're seeing is that the structure is becoming again bullish. It is about to cross over. When it does cross over, we will see a little bit more bullish momentum on that time frame. Given how we're already looking at the hourly, it completely makes sense that we will end up testing that 147.31. So we are seeing enough bullish momentum to continue moving upwards. Remember, I did say so many times and I warned about this, and it's tremendously important to know that if the overall S&P, the overall market, the major indices will flip and start moving downwards, which is, it is kind of astounding how we got to the high that we have. Palantir and the various risk-on assets, the entire tech sector will slip with the major indices downwards. Not even a question asked. This is a certainty. You got to understand that the indices are highly intertwined with the entire overall tech sector, and especially the risk-on assets. You know, your various Palantirs, Teslas, Rocket Lab, Microsoft, Apple, you name it, everything and anything will be dropping. Nvidia, all of it, all of the above, all of the tech sector and then some will be dropping severely. So what we're looking at, in fact, may hint at the overall movement of the market, because we know every time Palantir, in fact, if you look back and watch my videos, you know that I was saying originally that Palantir will be dropping as if with a parachute in comparison to the indices. Well, ironically enough, we're actually getting pretty much the opposite. Palantir have been dropping very, very rapidly with decent corrections, as you can see right now, right? Below the SPX and NASDAQ have been appreciating in value, so that is kind of phenomenal. How what we're seeing, what would have been considered a more of a defensive play, now playing out completely the oppositely, if you will, from the indices. Regardless, we all know and have seen, if it's April last year, if it's just in general, when we do have movements and slippages downwards, even if they're not that major, we see the various tech sector assets slip with the indices pretty much immediately. Sometimes they're lagging behind just a little bit, but overall we know they follow suit very quickly. So we've covered 1 hour. Let's look at the 4 hours, and here the things start to get more interesting. On the 4 hours, you can see, although we've been running bullish for some time now, right? Riding high, if you will, but we've gone through a crossover, through a convergence, if you will, and we are now bullish dominant. As you can see, our red line is dominant, is a higher number than our green line, so 98 versus 96. Basically, we've become bearish dominant. We are in bullish territory, but we have been riding high. Now, given this circumstance, our next way to understand whether we are actually bullish or actually bearish, we understand this entire movement works within the framework of the larger movement. Larger movement will be found on the larger time frame. So if we go to the daily and we find that we're in the mid of a bullish movement, this is merely this bearish transition is merely corrective, and we still are bullish on the grander scheme of things, right? That's how it works. So when we switch to daily, we realize, yep, we're still bullish. So potentially, remember that 150 area, 160 area that I was talking about. Now you realize that that 150, 160 in actuality represents the end or the ceiling of the current daily channel, which usually is very highly sought after and observed very, very accurately, right? So what we're going to be seeing here potentially, given this channel already is the major channel we're moving within for quite a long period, pretty much since last year. You can see we entered this channel, found this as resistance, and then kept on moving within the framework of that very channel. Let me try, no, pardon me, just drawings, right? So here, you can see we've been moving within the framework of this channel for quite a long time. So now is not going to be any different. We are potentially moving for a retest. Now all the drawings will come back, as you can see, to that ceiling, that diagonal level that we have right there. Okay, so that sort of is the logic where we're headed with that bullish momentum that we're seeing on the daily time frame. In fact, to confirm that, given the very same logic we just applied from the 4 hours to the daily, let's go to the weekly, and lo and behold, on the weekly we are actually bullish. We are in bearish territory, right below the 50 range. We're kind of around that 40-36, somewhat close, convergence, divergence, confluence, yet we are in bearish territory. So what that means, this entire bullish movement, you kind of have to remember, it reminds you that this entire bullish movement, although bullish, it is correction on the motive movement, which is bearish. So bearish exaggerated movement, correction, which is bullish. I hope you understand that. Now, that is the very same phenomena we saw on the front end of the cycle, if you will. We saw bullish movements, bearish corrections. The motive is always larger than the correction. Not always, in fact, ironically, if you look at the S&P right now, we actually got a little bit of a weird it's hard to say whether it's weird and it's an irregularity, because in fact, if you understand cyclicality, harmonic patterns, you know that is a possibility, a rare one, kind of an outlier, and yet it doesn't mean anything. Just in this sort of case and scenario, what we are doing right now, we're like, well, why are we testing, Greg? So is it an uptrend or a downtrend? Didn't you say on the daily we are going through a downtrend? Now on the weekly it appears to be an uptrend. Very confusing. Right, on the monthly, you realize that we've been riding low in reality, and in fact squeezing the bejesus of our bearish momentum, or moving average, if you will, that we are in essence have been, well, oversold for quite a long time and quite heavily. So the question becomes, if we're so heavily bearish, although we are right now in somewhat temporary correction territory, as you see, just as I've described, right? What is the broader, bigger picture with Palantir? Well, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, it's no different from what I told you about the market, and this is exactly the place where we can identify the correlations, is that on the 3 months, you can see that we are mid-drop, and we've just moved into neutral territory. We're no longer in overbought territory. We, in fact, are far more bearish than we were before. As you can see, the divergence between the two forces is very clear. The larger the divergence, the distance between the lines, the harder and more of a bullish movement is required for them to cross over and for the asset to transition into a bullish cycle. In other words, it appears to be that we are far, far, far from the bottom. But those who are confused to think that this means we're going to go downwards in a linear fashion, and that means we're going to zero tomorrow, you're utterly wrong, and you're completely misunderstanding the importance and what I'm trying to tell you about the internal movements, the smaller, arguably I hate to call it noise, but even though, remember, even though I'm more so I have a bearish position right now, technically speaking, I'm objectively, always am, giving you the objective analysis and reading of what I see. And even though this does not necessarily fully coincide with what my expectations are immediately, at least I know that on the grand scheme of the cycle, as you see, we're moving downwards, right? It's just that temporarily we're having inside of it, as I said, bearish motive, bullish correction. Irregardless, we still, even if we over penetrate, we still end up within the framework of lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower lows, lower lows, lower lows. That is a thing that signifies or is sort of the main attributes of a real prolonged downtrend. I hope I was slow enough so everybody can understand what I was saying, what I was trying to imply. So even though we are moving through a bullish partition or cycle within the overall cycle is still very bearish. And in fact, it appears to be that I was the only one that was able to predict it ahead of time, even though I'm the bear of the bunch, if you will. Now, just kind of a couple of words about the S&P. Yes, it is kind of a little bit irregular what we're getting, in that sense that we got a higher high than our previous all-time high, that 7,228. I will make a separate video about it, although I already made a couple. And so for those who wonder, in fact, right now everybody's ultra bullish. I bet my ass, no matter where you look, left, right, up and down, doesn't matter, on YouTube or on television, CNBC, MSNBC, doesn't matter where you look, Bloomberg, everybody's ultra bullish. So here we go. I want you to associate, right, what they're saying right now, and they're all ultra bullish, when they will claim in a couple of weeks or maybe in a couple of sessions even that they told you that the market is going to crash, and all sorts of bullshit. I want you to remember and associate the following crash with one single name and face. This one. I'm the only bear around right now. Pay close attention. Yes, there are some fringe YouTubers who probably, I don't know, worked in McDonald's and before they started doing YouTube. I actually was, for over a decade and a half, an account manager, an analyst, worked for multiple brokerages. This is my profession. I know exactly what I'm talking about. So in fact, if I'm wrong, better for you. You can celebrate and dance on my grave, so to speak, right? Right? Now, but if I'm right, I want you to remember the only person who was saying that from here on out, instead of bullish, we're going to go bearish, and bearish very hard. In fact, making a new lower low, right? Considering our previous low was 6,300, we're going to go even lower than that, maybe even significantly lower than that, right? I want you to associate that drop with me. Why? Because everyone else right now is bullish, and don't let them claim later that, oh, we told you so. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Be very attentive. Now, if you want to be in the know, if you want to understand yourself how to analyze the market, join my community, and more so I highly recommend, because both the community and the Discord, follow me on X, of course, but more so, join the community right now. Why it's so important? Simply because we'll ignore this tier. This is the tier for the Academy members. The current tier you can join on, that basic tier, is discounted. That $70 tier, within several days, this discount is going to expire, and this $70 tier will become a $100 tier. $70 a month, and you get all the perks and benefits that you can see written here below, and then some, right? And of course, you can make it even cheaper if you do pay annually. If you tick that little ticker for 20%, you'll end up paying $56 a month instead of $70. Do not forget to smash the like. It is absolutely free, even if you don't sign up. Why not? Smash the like at least. Do me a big favor. Share this video with your friends on your social media. Don't forget to ring the notification bell. Set it to all, everything, whatever it is nowadays. Otherwise, you'll not be informed whenever I put out a video, and I am planning to put out very interesting videos talking about everything and anything from oil, safe havens, of course, continue and follow the major indices to know where we're headed on the grand scheme of things, and when we have from time to time also cover, Palantir, Plug, Tesla, you name it. I cover pretty much the various assets, and of course, on the meetings with my community members, I talk about them all, whether about the assets that my members do ask questions about. We have weekly meetings and all sorts of wonderful stuff for the Academy member, and of course, more so, I teach you one-on-one, as it says here, one-on-one technical analysis tutoring, right? Although that's not how you join. You join through the community itself. You talk to me, we have a call, and then I either accept or don't accept you. Yes, I don't just accept everyone, believe it or not. It is quite an exclusive club. Ladies and gents, you all have a wonderful day. I hope I was able to provide you with some value, especially if you're a Palantir holder, investor, trader, doesn't matter. All of the above need to know technical analysis. So I invite you to my community. Like I said before, you'll be far more informed because I talk about these things in my community on the daily basis. In fact, let me show you. That's kind of how the Discord looks like. I hope you guys can see. Of course, from just talking shit and nonsense, we talk about the stock market all the time. I keep everybody informed, and so on and so on, right? That's it, ladies and gents. Like I said, see you on the next one. Bye-bye.